People come to Bohol for the hills because they look gentle, rounded, harmless, almost kind. That's what fooled Marco. Marco was not reckless. He wasn't a thrill seeker. He was tired, burnt out from years of city noise, deadlines, and grief he hadn't learned how to name. Bohol was supposed to quiet his head. A few days of walking, filming landscapes, listening to his own breath again. On his last afternoon in Carmen, he found an old trail behind a cluster of limestone rocks. It wasn't on any map. That should have stopped him. But the path looked welcoming. Too welcoming. The locals at the Sarasari store had gone silent when he mentioned walking alone. One woman crossed herself. "Those trails don't like being followed," she said, although Marco smiled, thanked them, and walked anyway. The forest smelled of dry grass and chalky stone. The hills rose and fell like sleeping animals as the sun dipped lower. Shadows stretched, making the land feel wider than it should have been. After 20 minutes, Marco realized he had stopped hearing birds. No wind, no insects, just his footsteps. Then laughter. Not loud, not close. It sounded amused. Marco stopped walking. The laughter stopped too. "Hello," he said, instantly regretting it. Something answered with footsteps not behind him, but beside him, matching his pace. A tall man emerged from between two hills as if he had always been there. He wore a hat and smiled politely, eyes hidden in shadow. "You don't want to stay here after dark," the man said gently. "These paths repeat." Marco laughed nervously. "I think I'm already lost." The man's smile widened. Everyone says that eventually they walked together. Marco didn't remember agreeing to follow him. The hills began to feel wrong, subtly reshaped, like memories altered by time. The same rock formation appeared again and again. Marco stopped marking the trail because every mark vanished when he looked away. "How long have we been walking?" Marco asked. The man tilted his head. "How long do you think?" Marco tried to check his phone. It showed 6:12 p.m. It had shown that for a long time. The laughter returned, closer now, layered like several voices overlapping. Marco felt it vibrate inside his chest rather than in his ears. The man stopped walking. Up close, Marco noticed details he wished he hadn't. Fingers a little too long, knees bending slightly backward, boots that never touched the dirt. "You know," the man said, "these hills used to be flat. They curled themselves to trap things." Marco stepped back. "What do you—" The man removed his hat. His face stayed human. Everything else didn't. His shadow stretched across 3 hills, bending unnaturally, ending in hooves that stamped without sound. A Tikbalang. Marco ran, or thought he did. The land no longer responded logically. Hills swapped places. Paths narrowed until they felt like veins closing. Marco screamed, but his voice came back, rung delayed, distorted, laughing. He saw memories appear along the trail. His childhood home, his mother calling him inside, old friends waving. Each vision pulled him deeper. "You're tired." The Tikbalang's voice echoed from everywhere. "Let the hills carry you." Marco collapsed. Time stopped behaving. He walked and walked, but never moved forward. His thoughts thinned. His name felt unfamiliar. The Tikbalang no longer chased. Gimmet waited, perched atop a hill, watching Marco forget. When Marco finally remembered a prayer, his voice cracked halfway through it. He turned his shirt inside out, hands trembling, barely believing it would work. The laughter cut off. Mid-breath, the hills froze. Silence slammed down like a weight. At sunrise, farmers found Marco standing beside the highway, barefoot, lips bleeding from whispering the same sentence over and over. "The road knows me." Marco never returned to the hills, but sometimes, at night, he dreams of rounded shadows outside his window and wakes up laughing without knowing why. In Bohol, locals say the Tikbalang doesn't kill you. It lets you leave, just incomplete. And if you ever feel a path bending back toward you, or hear your own voice laughing from the hills, don't follow it. The land is listening. Marco thought surviving meant escaping the hills. He was wrong. After the farmers found him by the highway in Carmen, they wrapped him in a blanket and asked simple questions: his name, where he came from, how long he had been missing. Marco answered incorrectly every time. Sometimes he said a different name. Sometimes he laughed before answering. Sometimes he stared past them, eyes fixed on a hill that wasn't there. The barangay captain said Marco had been reported missing 3 days earlier. Marco insisted it had only been an afternoon. At the small clinic, the nurse noticed something unsettling. Marco's feet were blistered and bleeding, but the wounds were old scarred tissue layered over fresh skin, as if he had walked the same ground again and again for years. When night fell, Marco refused to sleep. "The hills move when you close your eyes," he whispered. At exactly 6:12 p.m., the clinic clock stopped. No one noticed except Marco. He began shaking. "That's when it finds you," he said. "That's when it remembers." They sedated him. That night, Marco dreamed he was still walking. The hills were closer now, breathing. Each step sank into a soft earth that felt warm, almost welcoming. The Tikbalang no longer chased him. It walked beside him, its voice calm, patient-like, a guide correcting a child. "You did well," it said. "Most don't last that long." Marco tried to scream, but only laughter came out. When it woke up, he was crying. The doctor said Marco suffered from extreme dissociation, shock, dehydration, exposure. The old woman from the store disagreed. "You don't come back whole after the hills claim your name," she said. "You come back borrowed." Marco left Bohol 2 days later, or at least, he thought he did. On the ferry, he noticed something wrong. The sea looked too flat. The horizon curved upward, like a hill turned sideways. Passengers' faces blurred when he stared too long. Someone laughed behind him. Low. Familiar. That night, Marco dreamed of hooves tapping against metal. Bike Manila. Marco tried to return to normal life. He showered, shaved, deleted footage from his camera except for one clip he didn't remember filming. It showed the chocolate hills at dusk. The camera was shaking. Behind the hills, something tall moved. And behind the camera, Marco's voice whispered, "Don't stop walking." From that day on, Marco noticed paths behaving strangely. Hallways looping back to the same door. Streets that curved too tightly. Staircases that felt longer on the way down than up. Sometimes, when exhausted, he caught himself laughing softly for no reason. His reflection began lagging behind his movements. And behind the camera, Marco's voice whispered, "Don't stop walking." From that day on, Marco noticed paths behaving strangely. Hallways looping back to the same door. Streets that curved too tightly. Staircases that felt longer on the way down than up. Sometimes, when exhausted, he caught himself laughing softly for no reason. His reflection began lagging behind his movements. At night, he dreamed less of the Tikbalang and more of himself watching from a hill. One evening, Marco woke up standing barefoot at a road intersection, his shoes neatly placed beside him. He had no memory of leaving his apartment. His phone read 6:12 p.m. He turned slowly. Across the road, a man stood wearing a wide-brimmed hat, smiling patiently. "You walk better now," the man said. "The hills taught you." At night, he dreamed less of the tick and more of himself watching from a hill. One evening, Marco woke up standing barefoot at a road intersection, his shoes neatly placed beside him. He had no memory of leaving his apartment. His phone read 6:12 p.m. He turned slowly. Across the road, a man stood wearing a wide-brimmed hat, smiling patiently. "You walk better now," the man said. "The hills taught you." Marco felt something inside him loosen like a knot finally giving way. "Where are we going?" Marco asked. The Tikbalang tilted its head. "Back," it said. "You never really left." The next morning, Marco's apartment was empty. No signs of struggle, just muddy footprints, leading nowhere, ending abruptly in the middle of the floor. In Bohol, farmers still hear laughter rolling gently across the hills just before sunset, and sometimes travelers swear they see two figures walking together along paths that shouldn't exist. One tall, one slowly remembering how to walk like a man.